Grant Robertson.
Mr. Speaker, there is hope for Stuart Smith, because before the dinner break, he got up and he told New Zealand what we all know, that tonight we're debating a new tax the National Party brought in. And we on this side of the House over dinner were discussing what a tragic end this was to Stuart Smith's political career. So short, burned bright and out on one night. But Nicky Wagner has saved him. Stuart Smith could be the next Nicky Wagner. That's what we're finding out tonight, because she's just told us the promise has been broken, Mr. Speaker. No new taxes. That was the promise, and Nicky Wagner has just told us right now it is a tax. And every single New Zealander knows that, Nicky Wagner. And John Key went on the television last night and invited New Zealanders to Google the difference between tax and a levy. So I've done that, and I can tell you that a tax is a compulsory contribution to state revenue levied by the government on workers' income and business profits, or added to the costs of some goods, services and transactions. Something that we understand that a tax is. If we go to the Google of a levy, it is a tax. Well, it is in fact both the verb to impose a tax and the act of levying a tax. And in fact, some dictionaries go on to say to you, and I quote directly from this dictionary, use the word levy as you would use the word tax. So there we go, all there, right here. We're happy to table it for you, Todd. So it's one with pictures, so you'll be fine. You'll be good with that. So what we now have is a levy that is a tax, and a tax is a levy, except the Prime Minister doesn't think that either of them are the same. Mr. Speaker, we are through the looking glass. This is what Humpty Dumpty told us. When I use a word, it means just what I choose it to mean, neither more nor less. John Key through the looking glass with Humpty Dumpty, breaking the promise, breaking the prison. Poetry. You wouldn't know a poem if you fell over it, Mr. Foss. This is a broken promise. That's what this is. And it's not just a broken promise, Mr. Speaker, to the voters of New Zealand who were told at the election by all the national candidates over there that there would be no new taxes. It's a broken promise to the airline industry, who are quite clear. The Board of Airline Representatives has made quite clear that, quote, National's new tax, they understand that, breaches the understanding reached in 2003. Airlines already meet the full costs of aviation safety, and in return, the government met the cost of customs. Under the deal, the government was to bear the cost of agricultural screening, which is deemed to be for the benefit of the primary industries. A broken promise to New Zealanders, a broken promise to the airline industry. But of course, we all know that John Key's a straight-talking guy. You know, if he went to a conference of a sector that was going to be affected deeply by something that was happening in the budget, I don't know, 2 days after his speech, he might mention it to them. John Key goes to the Tourism Industry Association conference last week, slips his mind. Obviously, a lot of things on his mind, fails to even mention. That's right, because he is indeed, Carmel Sepuloni, that's right, very, very slippery. It's a sneaky tax, it's a broken promise, and that's all that New Zealanders will see it as. But, Mr. Speaker, it gets worse. Because as we look through the regulatory impact statement, and I hate to break this to the Minister who got up to give us the numbers before, we had 16, we had 20, we had 22. Do I have any advance on 22? No, apparently not, according to the Minister, except that when we look at the regulatory impact statement, it says, as it goes through about the model of the things, it says, all of this work will inform the final levy design, including the level of the levy. So the level of the levy, which is a tax, will still now be part of the consultation process. This is a bizarre situation. Here we are at 7:20 on a Saturday night, apparently urgently passing this legislation to enable the imposition of this tax, and the final design of the tax, the level of the tax, isn't even going to be worked out. It's off for consultation. It's like going to the City Council to get a building consent and saying, we're pretty sure the house is going to have some walls and we might put a roof on it and there could be a floor, but look, we'll work it out later. Just give us the consent now. That's what the National Party's doing tonight. There's all sorts of questions about who will it apply to. Will there be exemptions? Here's a question for national members. Will there be exemptions? Will it apply to every person that crosses the border? Silence. Absolute silence. They haven't got a clue whether this tax will apply to every person who comes across the border. Here's a thing for you. Prince Harry, would it have applied to him? No one? No one. Haven't got a clue, Mr. Speaker. They don't know what this is about because they've come to this House with an ill-thought-out tax, with an ill-thought-out proposal. Will apply to Jerry Brown. Jerry Brown, he'll sneak through, so it won't apply to him. Actually, someone called Jerry. His phone's on the desk. I'm not sure what happened there. May have been a bit angry earlier on and ripped it off. Ring up Jerry Brownlee and find out whether this tax will apply to him. Because at the moment, what we are being asked to pass in this parliament is a piece of legislation to impose a tax that the government doesn't know how much it's going to be, doesn't know who it's going to apply to, couldn't tell us how much it's going to cost to administer, doesn't know exactly who's going to administer it. It's a shambles, Mr. Speaker. It's extremely urgent, but it's a complete shambles, and it's a total broken promise, which symbolises everything about this budget. A tax that is a broken promise on travellers, a property tax which today Billinger said he didn't even know whether it would work or not too sure about that. Broken promises, shambolic budget. And on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, in a second reading debate, we really should now be debating the contributions of all of the people who submitted to the Select Committee. The tourism industry, the airline industry, travellers, and we do not have their voices here today. And Mr. Speaker, for all of those reasons, we cannot support this bill.
I call Ian McKelvey.